Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Tuesday, the 17th day of May, 2022, Tuesday of the 5th week of Easter, the 31st day of Easter. Coming to you from the breezeway between Clare Hall and the front doors of our church, the true front doors of our church, which, again, always lie hidden in some ways that you have to make your way around many things to be able to find the front doors to the church. But again, it's the idea of journey, the idea of pilgrimage, the idea of, again, this great search that we do for God, and to be able to find God here is kind of the option that we offer you here at St. Francis. But today, on this Tuesday of the 5th week of Easter, Acts of the Apostles continues. Paul is in one of the cities. He might be in Derby, or he's going to Derby, another city among the Greek coasts, as he's moving into the middle part of the Mediterranean, as he's making his way to Rome, actually. And when he is there preaching, some Jewish authorities show up, and they don't like what he has to say, and they end up stoning him, and he looks as though he's dead, but then he pops back up, and he goes back into the city to continue to preach. The thing is that then Paul tells the gathered apostles and believers that not to be dismayed or misled or fall into despair because of failures and tragedies. It is that through suffering, through all the failures, through anything else like that, that surprisingly the gospel grows, that surprisingly God's work gets accomplished, the reign of God is revealed more and more, wonders and glory are given. It works in the opposite of what we as human beings, in our limited mind and our ridiculousness and our stupidity would think the way that things work. That failure only leads to failure and to nothing and to despair and the end of everything. But again, the crucifixion has shown us differently. And the resurrection of Christ, again, proves that failure does not lead to more failure, but it can lead to glory and wonder. It is how God works in the opposite, how God works in different directions than we would work, how God works in ways that we cannot imagine. And if we are not attentive to those ways in which God works, then we do fall into failure and into despair, because we can only see in one way when God offers us a multitude of ways in which to see things. With this passage from the Acts of the Apostles, we have the Gospel of John that continues. And in the Gospel of John, we have the continuation of Jesus' speech at the Last Supper, in which basically Jesus talks about peace and talks about giving peace to people and allowing, again, that peace to remain with them and not to be misled or dismayed because of what, again, they will experience with Jesus' arrest and his crucifixion in the next couple of hours. Again, and Jesus says, I tell you this so that you might believe. I tell you this before it happens so that you might believe and remember. And of course, the disciples don't. They experience, after listening to Jesus, if they were just all bleary-eyed or just with their mouths agape and open and just kind of staring blankly at him, they don't remember anything that he says. And so they fall into despair. They fall into fear. They go into hiding after all these things have happened because they refuse to listen or they find themselves unable to remember what it is that Jesus tells them. But Jesus tells us it, so that, again, we might always remember that God always has the upper hand, that God always is victorious, that God always wins in the end. Even when we experience, again, the failures and the mistakes and all the things that seem to stand in the way as challenges and obstacles to what it is that we want to be in life and what we want in life, that God is the one who leads us, to happy ends, that God leads us to life, that God leads us to hope, that God leads us to wonder and glory, because God is always victorious. To believe that means that we then be able to look for it and to see it in our lives when it is happening and when it is unfolding. To fail to do so means that we fall into despair, which God does not ever offer us, does not want us to have, does not want us ever to experience. Easter allows us to remember once again, to trust in God, to trust that God knows what God is doing, and to see that hope and that wonder, because God's plans never fail. A blessed Easter, people of God, and St. Francis. May the Lord give you his peace.